What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursdays. Today I'm going to share with you 3 recent returns that I just got back in the mail and profile each of the individuals that signed for me. So we're going to jump right into this, and the first one is postmarked from Mississippi, and it is a return from former Boston Red Sox great Dalton Jones on 1, 2, 3, and a 4th. On some vintage 1960s cards. So let me tell you a little bit about Dalton Jones and his career in baseball. Dalton Jones was born in Mississippi, later moved to Louisiana, where he attended Baton Rouge High School in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The left-handed hitting middle infielder was highly recruited in high school, and as a matter of fact, the great Ted Williams came down to Louisiana to help sign Dalton Jones to a professional contract. And that'll be important because I'll bring up Ted Williams later when we talk about Mr. Jones. Well, instead of attending college, Jones signed on the dotted line, and at just 17 years old was assigned to the Class D League of the Boston Red Sox. He posted a .322 batting average that year, also stealing 15 bases and having 8 triples. The next year, he moved up to Single A, appearing in 127 games, posting a .309 batting average, having 13 triples and 8 stolen bases. He moved up to Triple A at just 19 years old and appeared in 143 games for the Red Sox that season, posting a .255 batting average. Well, when camp broke in 1964 in spring training, the 20-year-old Dalton Jones was on the Boston Red Sox. His rookie season, he appeared in 118 games that year in 1964 for the Red Sox, posting a .230 batting average, playing primarily the middle infield positions. In 1965, he would appear in 112 games and would up his batting average to .270. In 1966, he would post similar numbers where he appeared in 115 games, but his batting average would dip down to .234. By 1967, he was delegated to kind of a platoon-type player, being that he was a left-handed bat. He came off the bench as a pinch hitter more in 1967, but he had a resurgence in the 1967 World Series when the Red Sox were facing the Cardinals. And during that 1967 World Series, he was the starting third baseman in games 1 through 4. In the other games, he served as a pinch hitter. He posted a 7 for 18 or .389 batting average for the Red Sox in the World Series, which was second only to the great Carl Yastrzemski, who posted a .400 batting average that series, despite losing to the St. Louis Cardinals overall in the series. In 1968, he would basically get his starting role back, and he would appear in 111 games for the Red Sox that season. In 1969, he would appear in the identical amount of games, appearing in 111 games for the Red Sox in 1969 as well. Right before the 1970 season began, he was dealt to the Detroit Tigers for the 1970 season. While his time in Detroit, he would primarily be used again as a backup pinch hitter, appearing in 89 games in 1970, and in 1971 appearing in 83 games for the club. He would begin the season in 1972 at the Tigers. However, on May 30th of 1972, he would be traded to the Texas Rangers, reuniting him with the great Ted Williams, who was the manager of the Texas Rangers that year. So Williams liked Dalton so much that he made a trade for him to be his utility backup infielder with the Rangers club in 1972. Dalton would finish out the 1972 season, and then the Rangers would release him from his contract going into 1973. He would sign on with a very young Montreal Expos affiliate at the time, but despite signing with the Expos, he only appeared in 59 games for the Expos AAA affiliate, never getting a chance to go up to the majors after that 73 season. So at just 29 years old, Dalton Jones' career was finished in Major League Baseball. He spent 9 years in the major leagues, appearing in 907 games, posting a lifetime .235 batting average while playing utility middle infield pinch hit roles for primarily the Boston Red Sox. After his playing career ended, Jones worked for, at times, a bank and also spent some time working for Exxon in Mississippi. So, very cool to add Dalton Jones to the collection. I had never gotten his autograph before, so one of the great Boston Red Sox from the 1960s. So we'll move on to the next one. All right, so this next one's postcard from Illinois, and it is from former Chicago White Sox, not Red Sox, but White Sox, Al Weis, also known for his time with the New York Mets. And I have two New York Mets, Miracle of '69, and that is a top super team numbered card to 1969 of Al Weis, and it's kind of reflective there, so you can kind of see it's kind of a neat little insert. And I picked these up years ago, way before I had my channel, and I just basically bought the whole lot of them for like out of a dime box or a quarter box or something. And I was recently going through them, and a lot of the players in the super team set are no longer with us. Some of the Mets guys are in there, but there's some guys from like the 1960 Pirates, like Bill Mazeroski and such, they're still around. But most of the teams that are featured in that set, most of the players are no longer with us. So let me tell you about Al Weis and his career in baseball. Al Weis grew up in New York, where he attended high school. He was actually high school teammates with Jack LeMahieu, who actually would become his teammate with the Chicago White Sox later on in their careers. Weis has a unique story because he joined the United States Navy after high school, and he was playing baseball at a naval station in Norfolk, Virginia, when he caught the eye of a scout working for the Chicago White Sox. He signed him as a free agent in 1959, and he spent 4 years in the White Sox farm system, moving his way up his system until he received a September call-up in 1962 with the Chicago White Sox. In his first full season in 1963, Weis played 99 games as a utility infielder with the club. Most of those games were at second base, where 27 were at shortstop. Following the trade of Nellie Fox during the offseason, Weis became more of a second baseman in 1964, although he still made 9 appearances at shortstop, including 4 starts. He batted .247 and established career highs with hits at 81 and 22 stolen bases, second to the American League to Hall of Famer Louis Aparicio. Going into 1965, Don Buford was named the everyday White Sox second baseman, with Weis returning to primary utility role. He remained in that role for the remainder of his tenure with the White Sox, which ended on June 27, 1967, when he was injured during a play against the Orioles. After the season concluded in 1967, he, along with Rookie of the Year outfielder Tommy Agee, were traded to the New York Mets. Gil Hodges acquired Weis because of his fielding skills and was used primarily at second base during his tenure with the New York Mets. One of the most notable things about Weis's career came in the 1969 World Series. In Game 5 of the 1969 World Series, the Mets were trailing 3-0 after a Frank Robinson home run. This is when Don Clendenin came to the plate and made it a 3-2 game. And then Weis took Dave McNally deep to left field to tie that game. The Mets would eventually score 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th, and they would win the 1969 World Series over the Orioles. So Weis is the one that tied the game in 1969 that eventually won the game for the Mets to win the entire World Series. Weis would return in 1970 to the Mets, but his time would diminish in 1970 as the Mets chose to move forward with number 1 overall pick Tim Foley in their infield as a second baseman. Midway through the 1971 season, Weis was released from his contract after just 11 games with the Mets. So after having the historic home run in 1969, he eventually lost his starting role to an up-and-coming rookie and by 1971, the Mets had outright released him from their organization. So, in total, between the White Sox and the Mets, he actually spent more time with the White Sox, even though he's more remembered for being a Met, and he appeared in 800 games total over a 10-year career for both the White Sox and the Mets, compiling a .219 batting average. Again, he was more known for his fielding prowess than his hitting prowess, and ironically, he hit the home run that eventually would solidify the Mets World Series championship for the first time. So I want to thank Mr. Weis for signing, and we'll move on to the final envelope. All right, so this final one is postmarked from Florida, which is where he's retired from now, and it is from former Cleveland Indian / Minnesota Twin pitching great Dick Stigman on 1, 2, 3, and a fourth that I actually already had Jim Perry on this 62 Topps. Unfortunately, I never did get Barry Latman to sign before he passed away. I had this Jim Perry for a long time in my collection. I want to say probably before I started my channel. Somebody actually got this signed for me in a 50-50, which means that I sent them some Jim Perry cards. They got a few signed for themselves and for myself. So I've had this Jim Perry sitting around for a long time, and I was going through my cards, and I'm like, I have Stigman's rookie card there. I just need to get them out there and get them in the mail. So let me tell you about Dick Stigman and his career in baseball. Stigman, a Minnesota native, went to high school in Minnesota and signed right out of high school with the Cleveland Indians at just 18 years old. His first year in the Class D and C League, he struggled and posted just a 0-6 record. But the following year, Stigman put it together in the Class D League, and he posted a 17-win and 9-loss record in 33 games with a 1.44 ERA for the left-handed throwing 6'3" lefty. The following year, he'd be moved up to Double-A, but his record would fall to just 8-14. Well, the next year, he would repeat in Double-A, but eventually would finish the year in Triple-A, and he would again match the 17-9 record that he posted a couple years ago, and a 2.44 ERA. In 1959, however, his record would drop to 9-17 in AAA. Well, despite this, he would be called up to the major leagues in 1960 with the Cleveland Indians. He would be a spot starter, but he would appear in 41 games that season for the Indians, not necessarily posting a great record, and despite having this record, he was selected to pitch in the All-Star game. His record was 5-11 that year. And he was selected to the midseason and postseason All-Star teams despite having those records. Well, in 1961, he would primarily be used as a reliever with 6 starts that year, and his record would be 2-5. Well, after the 61 season, he was then traded right before the 1962 season to his home state Minnesota Twins. Well, the Minnesota Twins put him in their bullpen. Again, he started 15 games for them, and he posted a 12-5 record his first season with the Twins, which actually was the league-leading winning percentage that year in 1962. Well, the following year, the Twins tried him out as a starter, and he had a 15-15 record in 33 games started for the Twins that year. In 1964, his record fell to 6-15 as a starter, and by 1965, he was delegated back to the bullpen. In 65, he posted a 4-2 record with the Twins, and after the 65 season, he was packing his bags again and was traded to the Boston Red Sox right before the 1966 season. He would spend the entire 1966 season appearing in 34 games, starting 10 of them for the Red Sox. After the 1966 season concluded, he would then be traded in the offseason to the Cincinnati Reds. He would enter the year with the Cincinnati Reds in 1967. However, they sent him to AAA, and he would not finish the year with the Reds and would actually finish up the season with the Philadelphia Phillies in their AAA affiliate. Between the two affiliates, he appeared in 23 games as a starter and posted an 8-13 record. After not being called up in the 1967 season, Stigman decided to retire as a player from baseball. In his career, he appeared in 235 big league games, including 119 starts. He posted a 46-54 win-loss record in 922 2/3 innings. He had 30 complete games over his career, which that's a pretty impressive number compared to today's standards. 5 shutouts and 16 career saves. After his retirement, he moved back to Minnesota and became a businessman in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. In his honor, in his hometown of Nimrod, Minnesota, there is a park named Stigman's Mound. It is a popular boat launch canoe area, picnic area, which is adjacent to the Crow Wing River, which is part of the Mississippi, a tributary of the Mississippi River. So the Nimrod Nats, which is a baseball team that plays there, also named their field after him in town. So if you ever find yourself in Nimrod, Minnesota, if I'm saying that right, I know that's a derogatory term, but Nimrod, Minnesota, you can see Dick Stigman's park as well as his baseball field. So I want to thank Mr. Stigman for taking the time to sign my cards. I also want to thank Mr. Weis. We got a couple more of those 1960s TCMA cards signed. Also this nice 1969 Mets card. I also want to thank Mr. Dalton Jones for signing my cards as well. All 3 of these individuals I had never gotten before, so I'm very happy to add them to the collection. I hope you learned a little bit about some players from a long time ago that had some pretty big contributions to Major League Baseball in the 1960s. I look forward to your comments below, and as always, happy collecting.